The cadaver carrying, sneaking, creaking. Ever since the other day's massive 24W40A snapshot, I've been basically madly, deeply, sneakily in love with the creaking. In the initial video, we checked out the snapshot. I had the opportunity to check it out live with you a little bit more. That was super fun. If you came by, thanks for coming by. But that's not all. Every living, waking moment since this snapshot's release, I've been thinking, dreaming, and messing with this thing. Here are some of the coolest things I've discovered about the freaking creaking update. The star of the show, there's only one spot that I could begin, the creaking, the brand new asymmetrical, really creepy mob. I feel like I didn't give enough of a shout out to this really cool design. It reminds me of that old warden concept, and it's just so fire looking. Now, if you know a thing or two about the creaking, then you know that this creepy RuneScape tree ant mob is basically immune to everything except creative mode the punch. So in this update, there are sort of almost two different versions of this mob. There is, of course, for starters, the version of this mob that comes from a spawn egg. If I had one of these mobs that came from a spawn egg and I flipped over to survival, well, even though that I'm in survival, I could still one-hit this man and he's gone. On the other hand, we have the real deal boy right here that comes from the creaking heart. And yeah, science, I've been doing quite a few. Even if I have the strongest sword in the entire game and I spam that boy, nothing will ever hurt this guy. And believe me, when I say nothing, I mean literally nothing. Maybe a little bit of firepower right at the lad's foot, and we'll give it a second, go ahead and explode, and nothing more than a small jump in the air. How about we burn it with maybe a little bit of fire? Well, yeah, surely enough, this tree is immune to fire. It's like petrified wood. But then maybe that's not strong enough fire. We'll put lava, and then we will see, sure enough, this dude is straight chilling, just like going for a ride. Wherever life takes him, he doesn't care at all. Slowly but surely drifting away in the brand new sauna that I've designed for this boy. Heck, I've even thought maybe the most dangerous Minecraft mob of all time, the creeper. We'll go ahead and explode it next to this guy, and again, the jumps, they're pretty smooth and insane, but no damage at all. Water. What happens when we put the tree man inside of water? Well, if I were to say drop one inside of water and basically keep looking at it, it will just chill like, hey, nothing to suspect here. However, if I go ahead and look away from this guy, well, then he will all of a sudden come to life and start floating, and he can kind of swim as well. As soon as I look back at the guy, maintain eye contact with his three eyes, it goes back to, oh, nothing to see here. Once he's back on land, I mean, I still can't get enough of it. That small, like, wobbly walking. Dude, you're so cool. So when these cool snapshots happen and I do all of my testing, I like to take ideas from you guys. I saw a couple of you guys suggest the good old-fashioned, you don't move, the good old-fashioned trapdoor trick. I close or open these trapdoors, then I walk away. Will he fall straight down into the trapdoors? I believe this thing is going to. I haven't tested this one quite yet, but if we turn around, sure enough, oldest trick in the book. Not just like most other mobs, even though this boy has insane height, as long as I drop this thing into a 2-block hole, well, he's good to go. I'm not going to be able to do anything. Now, from everything that we saw in Minecraft Live, I had mentioned it in one of the follow-up videos, but I believe they mentioned something about a follow radius. In the initial hype and excitement and emotional rush of day one, I completely forgot about this follow radius. Let's go ahead and flip things over to the night. Inside of this world, a controlled world download on the community tab for this very world, out right now for channel members, by the way. I figured why not, also tap that like button. But anyways, follow range. So over here, in the dead of nighttime, if I go ahead and hit this lever, we get the log on top and bottom of this creaking heart block. Then after that, a creaking will be able to spawn. That's how it works. So go ahead and give it a second. One will manifest somewhere. Now, inherently, this thing actually isn't locked onto me. If I were to, like, just look away from this thing right now, it doesn't care about me. Instead, what I'm going to need to do to actually activate the creaking and, you know, get it to care about me is move closer to it. And when I move close enough to it, that sound, loop it one more time. The sound kind of activates in the eyes right there. You saw it, plain as day, the eyes light up. That means the creaking is now locked onto me. So now that it's locked onto me, as soon as I look away from this thing, then it will start moving towards me. The big question here is, but for how long will this thing follow me? So easy test right here to run. If I go ahead and flip my perspective and start walking away from this thing, as long as I'm not looking at it, it's going to chase me. If I keep walking away from this thing, maybe in a straight line from the origin point, the creaking heart block, well, eventually I'm going to walk so far away that this thing just doesn't know what to do. And so far away, it's really not that far in the grand scheme of things. 32 blocks, and poor old buddy over here has no clue what to do. And we can go ahead and test this by, again, looking away and just stand right over here. And yeah, he can't do anything. I'm like literally like just out of reach right now for the poor buddy, and he doesn't know exactly what to do. If I go ahead and walk down a little bit farther, basically the creaking continues to follow me until eventually it bumps in a little bit. I think this whole bumping in going on, it means that we have a spherical radius for the creaking originating from that creaking heart block over there, 32 blocks out in a straight direction. That's a beautiful mad discovery. Now, theoretically, maybe I moved the creaking over, like past the limit. Well, that's the thing. You can't move this creaking at all. However, there is one thing that you can do to move the creaking, and that is water. If I dump water and go ahead and just forcibly remove it from its radius, well, actually, it'll just demanifest once it gets far enough from the creaking heart. So, there you go, I broke the new snapshot. There is a way to take out the creaking without removing the creaking heart. When you do all of this, the entity essentially remanifests closer to the creaking heart, and the game starts over again. It doesn't care about me because I can see the eyes. So, in a situation where we can see all of the land a whole lot better, here I have a creaking heart center. If I were to activate that creaking heart, well, the radius of this thing would go out to the red line in every single direction, and then sort of approximately form a circle going all the way around this thing. I didn't build it out, you can kind of imagine it, you get the point. So what if maybe we had a non-spawnable block available for the creaking? So let's say something like glass, technically non-spawnable. When I go ahead and activate this piston, it's going to send this pale oak log over there, sandwiching the creaking heart and activating it. Will a mob spawn up here? Well, initially it seemed like no, but when I go ahead and start turning and maybe moving around, give it a little bit of time, eventually, there you are. Eventually the creaking, this buddy will eventually spawn up here. So that means the type of block that you have near this heart, as long as there is spawnable space, it doesn't matter at all. So the boy is beautiful, and I'm madly, deeply in love. Wish I could talk about you all day, but there was a lot more in the snapshot. Let's move on. Over inside of a more natural, normal survival world, I saw quite a few questions about moss mining. Does moss mining work with this brand new pale moss block? So to back things up a little bit, moss mining right here, this is a mining tactic that one could use inside of Minecraft where you place a moss block down, bone meal the moss block, and because moss blocks kind of have this like cool property where they just basically overtake most things, but definitely never ore blocks, well, you could flip into survival and with a hoe, insta-mine and basically all of this moss, uncover a lot more blocks, and maybe find your copper, sweet copper ore vein. So let's go ahead and go all out survival here. Pale moss block. If I place one down next to deep slate and go ahead and bone meal this, then yes, sure enough, the pale moss, it continues to spread all over the place. That's pretty cool. So right there, basically, yes, it's going to work. Moss mining with pale moss is 100% a thing. Only catch here is that right now, at least, the pale moss block breaks really slow with the hoe, so maybe not exactly ideal, but I think that's totally just like a bug or something, and is probably going to end up getting fixed a little bit later on. In fact, as far as my tests go, the pale moss block, it seems that the pale moss block will be able to turn or convert any of the blocks that plain old normal moss can convert on Minecraft Java. So that's going to be all of these blocks set out right here. I set up a couple of test pads. If you don't trust me, go ahead, do the War of Download, become channel member, and test this one out for yourself. But yeah, sure enough, pale moss will convert all of these blocks over into pale moss. Pale moss, you want to get a hands on it? Well, first things first, find the pale garden biome, pick it up off of the ground. But there is another way. Let's say you acquired your hands on some saplings somehow. Well, you can generate it. In generation pale moss, when I grow one of these pale oak trees, occasionally, like about 90% of the time, it seems like we will get pale moss to spawn on the ground. Now, I've been doing quite a bit of testing here when it comes to this pale moss generation, and maybe more specifically, the radius at which pale moss will generate out from these pale trees. It seems like, pretty consistently, the maximum amount of blocks that pale moss can overtake away from these pale oak trees is 3 blocks out from your sapling. Like, and I mean, I've tested time and time and time again, and not every time does pale moss generate. You can see right there, I had an instance where it didn't. Over there, I have an instance where it didn't. But every time when it does generate, I have never seen pale moss stretching out more than 4 blocks away from a sapling. Oh, but pale moss, that is just really cool mechanic that I can't believe I didn't even notice in the snapshot video. I forgot all about it. I saw it at Minecraft Live and I was so excited, but yeah, the pale moss thing. So when you place a pale moss carpet next to a block, then it kind of overtakes and climbs up that block right there. It's so cool looking. Now for this pale moss growth thing, if you want to call it that, you have 2 different options. 1 high, 2 high. If you place the pale moss down and you get like the 2 high one and you wanted the 1 high one, all you need to do is break it and place it down and break it and place it down until eventually you will get it. On the other hand, if you have the 1 high moss and you want a 2 high, well, you can walk up to it with bone meal and bone meal it, and it will grow up the wall. If I try and bone meal the 2 high and see if it'll grow any higher, well, unfortunately, no. I could use the bone meal all day long on the lower part and nothing will ever happen. But yeah, it's just impossible. If I use shears on this, maybe to try and shorten it, well, I can go ahead and shorten it. And actually, if I just use my plain old normal hand and try and break it right now, that works too. Now, this right here is really cool because clearly, as you can see, it being overlaid on the pale oak block, which is like perfect for it. It's beautiful chef's kiss. We'll talk about it later, but this is really interesting because you can make a bunch of sort of brand new block combinations here. Of course, on certain blocks, it's going to be more visible than others, but like, for example, look at how chaotic and hectic it looks on mossy cobblestone. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this stuff is really cool. It's a shame that it's so relatively similar to glow lichen, but at the same time, I mean, it's significantly different too because it doesn't take up that full block right there, and the tone is way more gray and creepy. So I know I always forget about glow lichen anyways. Some other blocks that I tried laying this stuff on just to see how it looks, concrete, you could really see the whole effect right there. I think that could be really cool on like the base of a build that you're using a lot of concrete, and maybe you want to break up the flatness of the build. Cobblestone blends in like crazy. Pale moss, you almost can't see it at all. How about normal moss? Oh, maybe that's a cool way that you could make a fade or something, right? Obsidian and stone, maybe more complex blocks, it works too. The blocks that it doesn't work on, it seems to be any block that is not a full solid block. So something like a slab, nope, that's not going to work. Something like a wall, no, absolutely not. Maybe even a lectern. Maybe I spun it backwards a little bit more tall, right? Well, no, absolutely not. Now check this out, cool little build trick that I found here. Let's say I had a wall right there, and remember that you can place carpets on carpet. You can't really like interact with these things, unfortunately, so that doesn't really work, but cool little build trick here. Pale moss, so go ahead and get rid of that. Pale moss, and it almost makes it look like shelves or something that is on the wall right there. That's really cool looking. Curious what happens if I bone meal this in this situation? Well, unfortunately, nothing. And yeah, if you bone meal it and there isn't room for the moss to grow, it will also not grow, but the bone meal right now, again, consumed. Now, all of this cool new pale moss stuff, this brings up the question of mossy blocks, the conversation here. What in the world is going on? There's, I think, a great opportunity here. Mojang is all about consistency, right? They're always the most consistent company. So you could say maybe in the crafting table, take cobblestone and moss and make mossy cobblestone. Maybe it's time for some kind of moss rework or something. And I wanted to send a shout out to the direct person I was talking about this with, but I couldn't find it. I think it was on Twitter, so I'm sorry. But anyways, maybe it's time for a moss rework. First things first, we absolutely need a green hanging moss variant. I mean, let's just be consistent here, right? And in survival Minecraft, if I bone mealed the bottom of the block, I should totally be able to grow this stuff and maybe spore blossom. So yeah, definitely get that green hanging thing. That would be really, really cool. Nice quality of life thing for this update. But then maybe what about moss? Is it time for a rework here and maybe get rid of the mossy cobblestone block or leave it in the game, whatever. But maybe moss layers should become the new meta, where you could take essentially this thing but without the carpet and put moss on any block in the entire game. That would be so cool. That way we could say take pale moss and make maybe like pale mossy deep slate bricks, or we could take normal moss and finally at last get mossy deep slate bricks. I don't know what the vibes are going to be like with the Mojang and these new drops, but I feel like it's all about community feedback. So maybe if we shout this one a little bit loud enough, they'll hear us and get that moss update so we can have mossy anything. Now, next up, I'd like to move on from the beautiful moss over to the tree. The tree is definitely the weak point. I do think the pale garden could be improved on quite a bit too. Maybe get a little more fog, more plants, but the tree, I guess I get it. They're saying it's a variant to the dark oak forest biome, but come on, this feels a little bit lame and a little bit lazy. You have such a cool opportunity here for this tree. Like, make it different, maybe at least a little bit taller. Or to me, one idea that I like a little bit more is take the acacia tree shape where it's like it grows up in branches, but maybe make this a solid 2x2 of a savanna tree. So it grows up and, you know, kind of branches out from the center, making it a little bit more like a willow. It's such a cool opportunity to do something unique and cool, and this is what we come up with, an exact clone. 2x2, I love it. It's cool. That's a great way to make it so we could use the sapling for like a plant, but come on, please, like switch up the tree shape here. Look at something like this. It's kind of a big mess, right? But even a tree that looks more like that, but get the branching going on and bending out a little bit more consistently, and it would be so cool looking. Also, not gonna lie, with the biome being dense still, the creaking would blend in. It would just allow for us to take the saplings out of the biome and make a really cool, unique tree. Let's move on. Pale oak. Oh my god, it's beautiful. This is such a beautiful wood set. I wanted to go ahead and lay it out next to every single plank in the game. I think I remembered them all right here. We've got kind of the gradient going on. At least starting with a dark oak, it fades to light. Then we've got light blocks right there, and it kind of fades through the rainbow, or at least a part of the rainbow that we have. Pale oak is set next to all of these other planks right here. I can't wait to put this in the vanilla game. I really hope we get some kind of structure that maybe spawns in that biome that uses the pale oak, even if it's just a random abandoned house. Like lore-wise, come on, please. It would be so cool. Also, hint here, developers, if we had the creaking right here, and then we had a structure that we had to go inside of, well, you would break line of sight and forget that this thing moves while you're going into the structure, trying to check out the loot or whatever. You turn around, and it's like, oh no, where is it? Oh, it's right outside. Maybe stuck on the block. Just go ahead and move. But yeah, like the idea of like finding the structure inside of this biome, you go into it, you completely forget about this thing, and then, oh, it's right at the door. How am I going to get out now because I'm trapped, right? That would be so cool. Great game design. Back to the planks, though. I tried to create a gradient. So, look, I apologize. I'm really, really bad at creating a gradient. I was trying to go from, like, lightest to darkest, but I think this definitely should be swapped, and maybe this should be, like, sitting in there or something. I don't know. I was trying to, like, line it up next to the other white blocks. There are no other white blocks I care to involve in this gradient right here. Well, actually, maybe there are some. We have, like, pink terracotta, excuse me. We have, like, white concrete, then we have white concrete, then we have, like, wool somewhere in there, too. All of these different white blocks. I don't know how the gradients work, but you do the math, okay? Creaking heart. Last but not least, I promise I'm not always going to leave this thing to the end, but the creaking heart block, this is so cool. So, of course, we know how the mechanic works. If I surround this to the top and the bottom, then this block will be active. If I remove this thing, give it a second, it deactivates. However, check this out. We can see it really quick. The top of the block, it also lights up right there, which is really, really cool looking. When it lights up, let's say, maybe pull that light out, well, it doesn't actually light up. I think this is a great opportunity to maybe have this thing like dimly light up. That could be really cool, but I don't know how that would play out inside of the tree. And speaking of play out inside of the tree, it seems from all of my testing, the creaking heart will never grow in a tree that you grow yourself. It will only generate in trees that you'll find in the wild. I'm not 100% sure on that, and I don't know how to check like the files on tree generation, so I'm sorry about that, but I'm just saying I haven't found a single creaking heart in any of the trees that I grew. The creaking heart, the activation, it does not have to be vertical. It can be horizontal as well. Keep in mind that this is a rotational block, so you can put it up and down or side to side. If I have this thing side to side and, you know, put it right between two pale oak, again, it will activate. Look at how cool that is. It's like a split and maybe burning, fallen log. That's so cool looking. And to keep in mind, if you're that type of player, kind of like me, who usually never lets nighttime happen over at your base, you could totally use this for terraforming around your base, because while it's daytime, the creaking will never spawn. The creaking heart also does not need sky access to activate, so check this out. As soon as I place this block down, it's not going to be able to see the sky, but because I have another pale log below it, it's still active. Ah, yes, and last but not least, I figured I would go full circle moment right here. So after I finish up these next two things, you can just start watching the video from the beginning again. Of course, tap like button, subscribe for more. I'm going to make a playlist for all of the creaking freaking update. But anyways, right here, we have a creaking. Want to put it in the boat? Well, no, the creaking does not go in a boat. You can't really push it very well, but yeah, it just, trust me, it doesn't go in a boat. It's too big. Ha, and last but not least, Chicken Turtle, you are a genius, a legend, a crazy person for this. I don't know if this is going to go viral by the time I end up getting this video out. Hopefully it doesn't, but this is really cool. Chicken Turtle asked in the comments of the snapshot video about this one. Check this out. Right here, inside of this chest, we've got a mace with that brand new treasure enchantment, Windburst. It's very cool. I like to call this thing Creaking Mace. Now, let's say I went ahead and got a little bit of a creaking in here. Look away from the block. There we go. You manifest right there. We get it to lock on by moving closer. Then we go ahead and walk away and look away, and it should be able to follow me. Oh, and by the way, while this thing is locked onto me, even if I look away and I'm really far away, it will still navigate over to me. Anyways, though, little buddy, old friend over here, we're gonna need you to come closer to the scaffolding tower. So we go ahead and look away, give it a second. It's a little closer, maybe a little closer. There we go. Now, if I go ahead and try and maintain eye contact, climb up this thing, jump off of this thing, hit that thing, hit that thing, hit that thing. You can do this all day long. As long as your timing is perfect, you can use the creaking to chain wind burst jumps. What in the world? Now, I guess, again, like, keep in mind, you're not actually doing any damage to the boy over here, but I could do this and, like, jump. Maybe you could make, like, a cool map or something, different type of parkour where you have to land a hit with the mace to get through your parkour map. Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, I think it's safe to say this Creaking edition is one of the coolest things they've added in a hot minute. Anyways, though, laddies, that's all I've got for you today. Channel members, world download, thank you all so much for watching. I salute you. Check out the snapshot video if you haven't yet. Channel members, Ground Crazy May, Medical Boomstick, Fire Dragon 19, CVM, Nick C, The Duke, Pixie Phantom, Deb K, and Faithful Grimoire. Thank you all so much for the support. It's been me, that handsome lad, and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.